Hello everyone and welcome back to More Knowing Wheel. Yes, we returned today. We've had a lot of podcasts over the last couple of weeks, but we're back once more to review all the goings-on from the Italian Grand Prix weekend. Of course, as always, I'm joined by Jamie183. How are we doing, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, a lot of Formula One for the past 3 weeks, but we've got through it, and Italy was an interesting race to say the least. There's a decent amount to talk about, so we get straight into it.
Yeah, I think we should. And like we said, we've had 3 non-stop weeks of Formula One action. It has been very, very good fun. A good way to come out of the summer break. Unfortunately, now we've got 3 weeks of no action again, but I'm sure we'll discuss that a lot more later on in the show. Of course, now we've got to try and think of things to come up with over the next couple of weeks. But as always, quickly before we jump into the Italian Grand Prix antics, there will be linked down below. Spotify, we've hit now, I think we're almost at 500 listeners over on Spotify. Small numbers, but we're getting there slowly but surely. So, if you could help give us a follow over there, it'd be greatly appreciated. And of course, download the show, if you want to be out and about listening to More Knowing Wheel. Of course, the best podcast for Formula One, because we actually know what we're talking about sometimes. The Italian Grand Prix weekend, of course, we had all the F1 action going on. I think we also probably should give a quick shout out, shouldn't we, Jamie? F2 and F3, every single race this weekend was controversial for some reason or another.
Yeah,
or
there were
2 championship deciders this weekend. They were both controversial. And then so was the Formula One.
Yeah, although controversial in that there's a bit to talk about, but it wasn't controversial in that they didn't really. We'll get to it later. We'll get to it.
Should we start with it, or are we gonna talk about it later?
We could start with it. I'm sure it's what most people want to talk about, isn't it? In Formula One, the end of the race.
Oh no, we'll talk about the Formula One stuff later on. I meant F2 and F3.
F2, yeah, let's go for it.
This has been an uncoordinated mess to start this week's show.
As usual.
We might know what we're talking about with Formula One. We do not know how to host a show. I guess we'll kick it off then we'll go up the rankings. Formula 3, first of all. You don't tend to watch F3.
I didn't catch any of F3. No, I value laying in bed at 8 a.m. rather than watching Formula 3. I
didn't. Laid in bed and watched it.
Oh wow, living a high life over here.
Yeah, I know. On my phone, exactly. This was, I think, the first weekend this year since Bahrain I've actually been able to sit down and watch all of the racing action. Of course, I've got big announcement coming this week that Jamie's already leaked about 3 times on this podcast. But I haven't made official anywhere else on YouTube or any social media for that matter. So I sat down and I thought, you know what? I'm going to get into it. F3, F2, F1, IndyCar as well. I watched some of that and a tiny bit of World Endurance. I had a proper motorsport weekend and it was brilliant. The F3, though, was controversial. Now, to paint you the picture, Jamie, 5 cars go into Sunday's feature race with a chance at the championship.
Yes.
3 of them, I'd argue now, because Isaac Hadjar was starting so far down the order, were really long shots. It was pretty much Victor Martins, Ollie Behrman, and Zane Maloney were all still sensibly there or thereabouts. It was going to take Isaac Hadjar a miracle and Arthur Leclerc basically needed everyone in front of him to crash out, which, to be fair,
is the opposite of what usually happens.
With Arthur Leclerc in the race, there is a fair chance he will crash a lot of people out. It was going quite well. Victor Martins was doing the job. He had quite a sizable championship lead going into it. It was really a case of either he got monzered or had an engine failure or something like that. Until late on in the day, where we get an incident between 2 of the drivers out of the second Lesmo, and they red flag it. And then also give Victor Martins a 5-second penalty. So you think, right, restart's going to happen. I think there were 2 laps maybe to the finish. Martins is going to get destroyed here and lose his championship. And then the FIA kind of turn around and go, oh no, we don't have enough time.
Yeah. I saw what happened on Twitter. People weren't very happy. And you can understand why, I think, especially since, am I right in thinking, was it Behrman who was likely to win the race?
So Zane Maloney was winning the race, but I think
Behrman was going to win the championship if they restarted.
It was highly likely, yeah. So it was kind of a bit weird with the way everything was working out. Obviously, Victor Martins would have lost a lot of points. Had Zane Maloney lost a single place, it would have... Sorry, had Behrman lost a single place, it would have then been Zayn Maloney's championship, which I think
Yeah.
a lot of people were ignoring, to be honest. But obviously, if Zayn Maloney and Behrman stayed at the front, and obviously Martin's got relegated due to his penalty, it would have been Behrman's championship, just.
Yeah, and you kind of, like, those three drivers, no disrespect for the other two, but you think Behrman's probably the one with the biggest future in front of him, just because of the age.
I would argue Zayn Maloney is the real deal.
Really? Behrman's like
3
17.
feature race wins in a row. Yeah, so Zayn Maloney.
Is he?
I
I thought Maloney was a bit older.
I thought he's only 18, 19 at the absolute most. Zayn Maloney is 18.
I was just at Zayn Malik by accident. Not him. Zayn Maloney, yeah, but I don't know. I mean, out of the three, Martins has definitely got the lowest ceiling, I think we'd argue. So from a neutral point of view, where you want to see the young talents or like the biggest prospects do the best, it was quite hard to accept that Maloney and Behrman weren't going to get the chance of winning the championship in Formula 3. But another like little caveat, which is a very smooth. In 2014, was it 20? No, it must have been 20. I'm off. It's all gone wrong. 2014 was Ocon and Verstappen. It wasn't controversial or anything.
European F3.
In European F3, but like Ocon won the championship, being about 4 years older than Verstappen, who everyone was like hyped about. That's kind of the same situation.
He's 2 years older, isn't he? Not even that, I thought.
But like everyone knew that Verstappen was kind of the one that would go to higher places than Ocon did, even at that point. And that's like the F3 championship. What I'm trying to say, it doesn't really matter because making a name for yourself is what's more important.
Okay, so
and I think Behrman. Well, it matters to do well, but like coming first or second or third isn't massively relevant when everyone knows what happened and they can kind of think Behrman and Maloney are the ones to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think you're probably giving a bit of a disservice to Victor Martins because he spent so many years with no funding that really has sort of set him back, and the fact he's still able to sort of do what he's been able to has been impressive within itself. But yeah, I mean, any of those three. I mean, I think we've already had confirmation, haven't we, that Isaac Hadjar will be moving up to F2 next year. Mm-hmm. He was gutted. I think he just made that one mistake in Friday qualifying, and that was basically championship over for him.
Yeah.
You know, he's on the road to F2 now. He'll probably, I reckon, end up down at somewhere like a Carlin. I would have thought, you know, Behrman will definitely be in F2
Prima.
next year. I can't see. Yeah, he's probably going to be at Prima. Obviously, you would have thought Victor Martins will get the call up as well. You know, he can end up at UNI Virtuosi or ART. I think the only real one's there, isn't it, that's sort of up for debate still. I wonder if Maloney will do another year of F3. I mean, he won the last 3 feature races in a row, so he was looking pretty strong towards the end. Whether an F2 team will give him a call up. But I guess the sort of the big name there that's probably a bit more of a surprise, isn't it? I'm interested to know your opinion on this. Arthur Leclerc. What do they do with Arthur Leclerc now? Is he just going to have to do 1 year in FIA F2 and see what he's capable of and then get shipped off to Ferrari's LMDH program? Or is he just getting straight shipped off to Ferrari's LMDH program?
I think they'll give him one shot in F2. Because we tend to see like the top 8 to the top 10 roughly from F3 do make that step up all at once. And some of them sink and some of them swim. So, like, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but I kind of expect at least the top 5 who are in championship conversation to all kind of step up at once.
Yeah, I think it's fair, isn't it? Again, like all these things, it comes down to money, doesn't it, at the end of the day? Speaking of F2, though, probably the less controversial race weekend. I mean, there was a lot of carnage still.
Yeah.
But Felipe Drugovich, he's done it. Champion from the pit lane. He got taken out by, I think it was Amory Cordial, wasn't it? Lap 1.
It was one of the VARs, yeah.
Yeah, and watched poor Cher get a bit unlucky and not quite make the progress he needed to. So yeah, won it from the pits. And fair play to him, a completely deserved champion.
Yeah, very consistent across the course of the season. Everyone else there's certainly drivers faster than him on their days, but it wasn't those drivers' days very often. So Drugovich kind of kept picking up the points and did it all he needed to do. And he's confirmed as Aston Martin reserve driver for 2023. Which, is interesting considering they haven't actually... Oh, of course they have. I was going to say they haven't replaced Sebastian Vettel yet, but yes, they did that immediately.
Alonso, yeah.
Yeah,
Did you
forgot
just
about
fall
that.
asleep throughout the entire summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would have loved to have seen Drogovic get a call up, maybe down at your Hasses or somewhere like that, just to sort of give him a year in Formula One, see what he's capable of.
It doesn't
because
surprise me he hasn't, to be honest.
No. It's he is a bit like your Davide Valsecchi or your
Fabio Lima.
I can never remember his name. All I could think of then was Bruni, but that was years before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that wasn't F2 either.
No,
But yeah,
not.
I mean, Drogovic has done everything he needed to, hasn't he, this year? He's proved himself and he's now within the F1 circle. I guess the other real talk still, of course, so Teo Porcher just spending the whole year getting mecha chromed.
He was quite
of course,
inconsistent as well. It wasn't all down to reliability.
Are we going to talk? You're just trying to play everyone else down. I'm going to let Jamie have 2 minutes just to hype up his boy here.
Guan Yu Zhou, driver of the weekend. No, not driver. He was very good all weekend.
Who?
I was talking about Zhou Guan Yu because that's who Porcher is up against for the seat. So I'm like, bit
Oh,
off Porcher.
right. Sorry, I thought you were going to back up a certain Red Bull Junior.
I was so annoyed. The F2 feature race was just ridiculous for Liam Lawson. And after, obviously I was absolutely baited into thinking he might get a shot at F1 this weekend when Gasly was ill on Thursday, which didn't happen. Lawson puts it on the front row, very good qualifying, a couple of hundredths off pole. Yeah, sprint race was fairly solid. I think he came 5th or 6th in the sprint race, which is all you can really expect when he's starting so far down. And then feature race, he's in the lead, everything's going well. And then a safety car gets called as he's just gone past the pit lane, which happened to you in AOR once, if you remember that, at Monza.
Did I still win that race?
Yeah, you did. And me and Fred got a
Did
free pit
Lawson
stop
win
and you
his
still
race?
won. No.
So
Because-
I'm better than Liam Lawson.
Yeah, well, your competition was me back in the day, so pretty poor. But yeah, Lawson then kind of was on the road to recovery, and then Yuri Vips took him out. So yeah, not the best weekend. The minute I back a driver in a junior series, they just immediately just have all the worst luck in the world.
I've seen Jamie back so many junior drivers. We've known each other, what now, 6 years? Which is mad
terrible.
when you think about
So
it.
long.
I've seen you in that time back so many juniors that have either made it to F1 and completely fallen off, made it to F1 and been completely unlucky, never got a podium in Formula 1, looks at Nico Hulkenberg, or just as soon as you backed them in the junior formula,
They've just fallen apart.
watched their careers fall apart. It's incredible. Honestly, if you are an F2 team, you want Jamie back in your rival next year. Hit him up on Twitter at Jamie_183 and pay him off to support your rival because he will destroy them somehow.
Yeah. I don't think Liam Lawson will be too pleased with me anymore. But I don't know if he ever was. But there we go.
I can't imagine so.
No. Shall we move on to
Let's
the
get
main
into the
talking
Formula
points
One.
for Formula One?
Do it. Go on, Jamie. Talk me through free practice.
We had before the weekend we had an absolute boatload of penalties to hand out as we come to expect at a track that's easy to overtake on. Everyone thinks, oh, this is a good time to use penalties to get new engines. So yeah, I think it was in the end 7 drivers with penalties.
I've written them down.
Oh, you have? Amazing.
It was more than that.
Sainz, Hamilton, Tsunoda all got back at the grid penalties. Tsunoda's wasn't an engine penalty, or it was kind of an engine penalty, kind of a 10th-place grid penalty for getting 2 reprimands after he said that Dutch people have no brains. No, not Dutch people,
Is that
sorry.
what it was for?
I think
Was that what it was for?
It was some comments.
I didn't think it was for that. Oh, okay. I didn't.
Or maybe it was... No, it wasn't. It was actually driving around without his seatbelts on because he took him off to get out. But it would have been funny if he got it for saying Hamilton found them no brains after Zandvoort. So those 3 back of the grid, Sainz, Hamilton, Tsunoda. Schumacher, Magnussen and Bottas had 15 place penalties, which effectively put them in front of the back of the grid people, unless they qualified in the top 4, which wasn't going to happen for those 3. Perez had a 10 place penalty, and Verstappen and Ocon had 5 place penalties. Verstappen just takes penalties every week at this point to make the races more interesting.
Exactly. Give himself a bit of fun.
Yeah, and it worked out. He's won from the most different grid positions from the whole history of the sport now, apparently.
Has he?
Yeah.
What? That can't be right.
Yeah. He's won from loads of positions.
Do you know, here we go, Jamie, a fun fact for you.
Okay.
When the last driver won from P9 in a Formula 1 race.
What a weird stat. That's not even related to this weekend at all.
No, completely not. But I saw a stat on it at the weekend, and I thought it was
Ocon
fascinating.
won from 10th in Hungary.
That's not what the question I'm asking. So,
No.
every other position inside the top 10 has had a race won from that position since 2013. Kimi Räikkönen won from 7th place at Australia 2013.
Yep.
And then that was the oldest one apart from 9th.
That's really weird. I wonder. I have no idea where to even begin to guess who it would be.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, go for it. I have no clue.
Guess roughly the year. Of course,
Well, you're hyping it up as if it's like a super long time ago.
Every other
So I'd
position
go
inside the top
someone
10
like
has been within the last 10 years.
someone like Johnny Herbert,
So we're thinking late 90s.
like early late 90s. Yeah.
1984.
Wow, that is
Niki Lauda.
bizarre. Why it's that long ago, and the rest of them have happened in the last 10 years.
Well, I'm guessing the others, of course, were because for a long time when we had that weird... Obviously, if you made it into Q3, you then had to start on the tyres you used in Q3. So then you had a lot of drivers that would start lower down and not do a lap in Q3 and start on a fresh set of tyres. But yeah, just Formula 1's been weird over the last few years.
Yeah, but Verstappen's
You'd
just
love to see it.
trying to tick them all off. He's going to win from P8 next week, P9 the week
He's
after. Yeah.
He's going to try next year to win. He's going to start one race from first, second,
Yeah,
third,
yeah,
so on
yeah.
and so on. Win from every single position on the grid. That will be that. I mean, worryingly, I can see it happening. But anyway,
just messing around.
Speaking of Max Verstappen and Red Bull this weekend, they weren't as dominant as we all expected them to be. I think we kind of were expecting a Red Bull walkout, but after free practice, it became quite clear that Red Bull were running a bit more downforce than Ferrari, and Ferrari, home race, extra engine modes, that probably meant an explosion going on at the back of the yellow car, but it was looking tight.
Yeah, Leclerc was very happy after Friday, thinking that he had the pace for pole on merit. Oh, obviously, he was the only one at the front going to get pole anyway, because both Red Bulls and Sainz had penalties. But he was pretty confident of that Ferrari's pace. So yeah, it could have been a role reversal from what we saw at Spa, where the Red Bull was just ridiculously OP. But yeah, it was interesting to see Ferrari actually kind of be on it in terms of pace for the first time, probably since I don't even know when it would be.
Zandvoort.
Were they that quick at Zandvoort?
They were right there.
They were just, I guess they just didn't really do much in the race, did they?
They were a bit quiet, but they were there or thereabouts throughout most of it.
Yeah.
And I guess the other big talking point, there wasn't it, of course, was poor Alex Albon, bless him. Out for the weekend with appendicitis, and we literally found out probably about an hour before recording this podcast that he had a really bad reaction to the anaesthetic as well, bless him. So not a fun weekend.
Something like lung failure or something, wasn't it? Pretty mad. He's got 3 weeks to
stuff.
3 weeks to recover before the next Grand Prix, so he should be back in time for that.
Yes, bless him, and obviously both of us wish him a speedy recovery before the next race out. But that meant, Jamie, probably the feel-good story of the weekend, wasn't it? And we'll obviously talk about that a little bit more later on. Nick de Vries, F1 first race debut is the word I was looking for.
10 years after his tuned debut.
10 years after his tuned debut. Lando Norris never made it to tuned, and he's almost won races for McLaren.
But Lando Norris was about 15 when tuned really. If that, really. No, Lando's our age, isn't he? Yeah, he'd have been 12 or 13. Good. The first driver to compete in the same Grand Prix for two different teams since also, I think, 1984.
No.
Which is a weird... Crofty mentioned it, but I don't remember what.
I thought it was 1964 and it was Jack Brabham.
Oh, maybe it was.
At Monaco,
I'm not sure.
Correctly.
I've failed on that stat delivery there, but we move on.
You've ruined the stat there, Jamie.
I have, yeah. So De Vries did obviously Friday in the Aston Martin, and then
he did FP1. Yep. So Nick de Vries in the last week has been in 3 different teams. He was obviously Mercedes at Zandvoort last weekend.
Yeah.
Aston Martin on Friday. Williams on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really was, wasn't it? It was so much like going, what happens here if De Vries beats Latifi? That surely means Latifi is in the bin.
Sure.
And I don't think it surprised any of us when, come Saturday, Latifi went out in Q1 and De Vries made it through.
Yeah. I do think Albon was really on. He was going to do well this weekend if he was able to compete. But yeah,
Yes.
Albon and De Vries, all respect to them, but they're not that high caliber, like top level driver. They're obviously very good.
It was going to be a good track for Williams anyway.
It was, yeah, definitely. But it kind of just shows that Latifi is,
Useless.
very, very poor. Yeah, and actually, here's a spoiler for the race, but De Vries did score points on his debut. That brings us well onto the quiz for the week.
Oh, you've really tried to shoehorn that in.
That was very well shoehorned. I have no idea what you mean.
I mean, you've jumped way ahead, but
I have a little bit, but
I'll allow it.
No, that's not how I want to start this question.
Okay.
Nick De Vries scored points in his debut.
Yep.
You're very simply, you've got a minute to name the last 10 drivers to score points in their debut.
Oh, Christmas pudding.
And your minute is going to start now.
Yuki Tsunoda.
Correct.
Lando Norris.
Incorrect.
Alex Albon.
No.
I'm trying to think of rookies. Latifi almost did. George Russell certainly didn't. Danny Kvyat.
Yes.
I've just gone so sporadic there immediately.
Yeah.
That's been a disaster. Pierre Gasly.
No.
No. This is going to really annoy me incredibly quick. I'm trying to just think of
You had half your time.
Sergei Sorokin.
No.
No? Oh, damn. No, he was in Williams when they were terrible, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, no. This is going disastrously.
This is
Jamie.
awful. This is a
I'm
very poor
panicking.
showing. You got 15 seconds.
Sergio Perez.
No.
Carlos. No, I've already said Carlos Sainz.
He didn't. Oh, he did.
Carlos-
You didn't say him.
He did. Oh, I didn't say him.
Five-
Charles Leclerc.
five-
No, he didn't. He
no.
was useless. I don't know.
Oh, it's gone. That was.
How far? Can I ask quickly? How far back does the 10th most recent go?
The 10th most recent was Sebastian Vettel.
Okay.
So yeah, you there's quite. It's interesting because there's a lot of obscure rookies that like all
They're
of the
kind of
really
there
high
and then
level
went
rookies, the
again.
likes of Norris or Leclerc, those kind of drivers didn't score on their debuts. But you missed Zhou Guanyu this year in
Did
Bahrain.
he score? Did he?
Yeah, 10th place.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I completely forgot he was a rookie.
Rookie of the year. What are you talking about? Stoffel Van Dorn.
No, De Vries's.
Stoffel Van Dorn in Bahrain 2016.
Yes, Bahrain 16. Yeah.
Felipe Nasser.
Felipe
Fifth
Nasser.
place.
Yeah. Marcus Ericsson.
Oh,
No, Ericsson didn't. He was at
Ericsson
Caterham
didn't.
before.
Yeah, he was at Caterham first.
No, he
I
was
like, I missed
Caterham.
it.
That's fine.
K-Mag, second place on debut.
Yes, his best ever result still.
Yeah, yeah. Paul de Resta got 10th in Australia 2011.
Who remembers him?
Yeah. Sebastian Bourdais in 2008 Australian Grand Prix. And Sebastian
Yeah, even
Vettel.
though he did. No, he didn't. No, he did finish the race, didn't he?
He
But
did.
he was like 3 laps
but
down.
he lost to Raikkonen, who DNF'd.
He didn't finish.
And Raikkonen
yeah.
came 7th. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, Sebastian Vettel in USA 07. The one before
I mean,
that
that is
was
a
Lewis
horrible.
Hamilton.
I was gonna say it would have been Hamilton, and then Rosberg before him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a horrible, horrible little quiz.
Yeah. You didn't do very well, I'll be honest.
Yeah, but there's so many, like, there's such an obscure amount of things. That I'm not gonna shame myself too badly. Plus, you did terrible when I tried to ask you Dutch drivers at score.
Oh,
points.
well, I got the ones I should have done. So
Yeah, to be fair, you actually did annoyingly well still. Right, let's wind it back then, Jamie. We'll go through qualifying. Of course, Q1, not particularly eventful. Both Aston Martins, both Haas, Nicholas Latifi out. How many more weekends will Sebastian Vettel be shocked that he goes out in Q1 by the end of the year?
it's insane, isn't it? It's
Sever
mad.
out in Q1. What? No, really?
No
Again?
way. Like, it must have been maybe 4 of the last 5 or 6 races that you hear that message in the Q1. Okay, Sebastian, we're P16. It's like, no way. It's every time. Just say something different, or just FOM stop playing it.
Well, yeah, there is a bit of that, but I guess he's the only one inside that bottom 5 that has emotion.
Anyone
still,
cares
because
about.
You say that to the Latifi, he's there like, hi, good day, mate. I can't do a Canadian accent. That was
Good
horrendous.
day. That's the wrong end of the planet, mate.
That
Yeah,
was not my
Latifi's like,
point,
oh, we're
is it?
within 107%. That's good. we can
Exactly,
start.
yeah. K-Mag's just angry all the time.
Yeah.
Mick Schumacher spent all of last
Probably
year
just asks
qualifying
where
19th.
Seb is.
Yeah, and then Stroll's useless anyway at qualifying, except for his one pole position. Same amount as poles as Nico Hulkenberg. Crazy,
And Lando
innit?
Norris.
And Lando Norris, yeah, and one more than Perez, am I right in saying?
No, Perez got pole.
No,
in
Perez
Jeddah.
had Jeddah this year, didn't he? Ignore me.
Yeah.
Ignore me. Q2 as well, though, I think was quite an uneventful affair. Of course, we had Nick de Vries straight through. Bottled Q2, sadly, but he was joined by Yuki Tsunoda, who didn't set a lap. Zhou Guanyu, Esteban Ocon, and Valtteri Bottas, after Jamie spent all of Saturday hyping up Zhou Guanyu, being quicker than Bottas, and then he wasn't, which did make me chuckle.
Yeah. I do hype Joe up an awful lot, but
Yeah,
he
an
delivered on
awful
Sunday.
lot.
That's where the points are.
Fair enough, it's a very good point. Yeah, and then we got into Q3, and Charles Leclerc did it. Put it on pole position for Ferrari. We kind of expected after Friday that, Red Bull would just kind of, I don't know, going to try. But to 120.1, it felt like both teams were sandbagging quite a lot, and then both kind of went out all guns blazing at the end. But it was Leclerc on pole.
And it was a typical Carlos Sainz, fastest on the first runs, and then doesn't quite have that last little bit that Leclerc and Verstappen tend to have.
Yes.
But yeah, I think Red Bull had kind of set up for a race pace, because obviously they had the penalties anyway. So it was kind of Leclerc to lose. Red Bull maybe being nice to them in their home race, like have pole, but we're going to win the race. So
yeah,
it was cool to see the atmosphere.
Your dream destroying.
Yeah, but it ended up with the penalties. It was hard to get excited because we basically knew Leclerc was going to be on pole unless he stacked it.
1.3 seconds quicker than the car alongside him.
Yeah, George Russell in second place, the only other Big Six car without a penalty. McLaren Row 2 took about 15 years to get the grid finalised. But yeah, McLaren Row 2 with Ricciardo actually being semi-serious all weekend, so fair play. It must be one of his better tracks because obviously he won there last year.
It's because there's next to no corners.
Yeah, it's just putting your foot down, which I think I could do most of the time. Pierre Gasly and Alonso in row 3 with Verstappen starting 7th. Nick de Vries.
It was the all-Dutch row 4.
Yeah, de Vries, Joe and Latifi somehow, after going out in Q1, that ended up in the top 10. But that didn't last very long in the race.
No. I mean, my favourite one was the fact that both Haas cars had 15-place grid penalties and got moved up the order.
Yeah. It does need a bit of a rework, I think, the penalty system. But
yeah,
it's weird because when you're later into a rule reg cycle, it generally calms down. Apart from when Mercedes are trying a rocket engine on Bottas every week. But yeah, this year it's every time there's a good track to overtake on, people just take a million penalties. So
I mean, we
expect
do,
it. USA next or Mexico maybe?
USA, I would have thought. I think the thing as well, isn't it, is like Monza and Spa are always tracks they take penalties at because, of course, you've gone through the summer break. Everyone now has hopefully made, obviously, prior to now, made some developments on their engine. I mean, even now, they're obviously making reliability measures on their engines, which, of course, boost performance. No one's stupid enough to believe they don't. But, yeah, I mean, it happens every year. But what could Formula 1 change? Because it is frustrating, isn't it? The fact we get to the end of a Saturday, and it took, about 3 hours for the grid orders to actually come out. Do we need a different system in place for the race? That then means that, say, for example, I know some people have said, like, if you've got penalties, you have to take a drive-through or something like that.
I think potentially going back to the old way.
5-place penalties are fine, I think.
Yeah.
But 10 and more, I wonder whether it's got, like, say, for example, a 10-place penalty could be replaced with a drive-through, and 15 or more would be replaced with a drive-through stop-go.
I would quite like them to go back to... They used it in the mid-2000s a bit, but effectively, like, they add time onto your quali time. So at the end of Q1, say you've got a 5-place penalty and it carries the whole way through. Why didn't it work? Like, at the end of Q1, you add half a second onto anyone with a 5-place penalty. You add a second onto anyone with 10-place. 1.5 seconds onto a... I mean, I guess it's a bit unfair because at a track like Spa, 1.5 seconds means a lot less than a track at Austria, for instance.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. Like, I
But
don't think there's any way you could
yeah,
sensibly
you
weight
kind of
it.
have to do percentage, but that's way too complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
And
you add on
then again, you
5%.
just get the same issue where you're looking at a grid order that then
And people are
doesn't.
just
You don't
confused,
know what
yeah.
people are doing anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got to try and work out a way that it's less confusing at the end of the day, isn't it? And I think
I guess
that's
you could
why,
make you could algorithm it at the end of Q1 to just add on the
you could
percentages.
algorithm it. You could
and that could be
algorithm it.
instant. If it worked, that would be instant. But then we
Yeah,
know
but it
how
still doesn't
graphics
make
work.
sense when you see someone cross the line and like they do a 121.1, like half a tenth off pole, and then suddenly it actually comes up with a 123.642, and they're upside down
Yeah,
inside
I
Nicholas
guess.
Latifi's Q2 run.
Yeah, I guess it's a
Because
difficult
then-
one.
Yeah. Again, it's just a bit weird, isn't it? Because you can't even just add like a post-race penalty, because that would just be a disaster.
That would be insane.
Where
Yeah,
Max could just take a penalty each weekend, win by 30 seconds, then it's still just his win.
yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I wonder whether there's going to be in-race penalties instead for it. Or, of course, we bring back, 2005, where you could only replace your engine every 2 Grand Prix? That would be
Yeah,
fun.
engines had to last 2 races. Like, wow.
Yeah. Strict new measures that Honda really struggled with.
Genuinely, 09, Vettel sat out practice all the time because they had a limit of 8 ICEs, which is it was just a V8 engine back then, obviously. He
Yeah.
had to sit out so many because they struggled to keep it down to 8 for the whole season when a season was 17 races.
Or, yeah, I guess it's the thing. Do they just make the penalties even harsher?
What make teams focus on reliability more than pace. But then, yeah, I don't know. It's a discussion for another day, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say then you could have like drivers being forced to sit out of a race weekend, but that'd be awful.
That'd be
Just
terrible.
like 14 cars show up.
That's Bernie Ecclestone's dream back in the day.
No, Bernie
The cost
Ecclestone had a
cap
lot of
stuff.
dreams for Formula One, but
Yeah.
none of them are very good. Let's get into the race though, Jamie. We have rambled on terribly.
33
about
minutes my
qualifying.
recording's been going before the race. That's getting on for a record, I reckon.
Talk me through the start.
Yeah, and immediately Lando Norris from 3rd on the grid just dropped down hugely. I thought it was going to be a massive accident seeing it live, but luckily not. So yeah, Leclerc covered off Russell at the start. Russell kind of cried a bit about getting forced off at T1, but that was never going to get anything. That was just Leclerc taking his line. Ricciardo P3. I was astonished. I don't know why at this point of the season, but I was amazed at how quickly Verstappen got through. Like the end of lap 2, he was 3rd. It's just insane.
Well, by turn 1 of lap 2, he was 3rd.
He was 5th, yeah. Yeah, so
No,
by
he
the
was
start of lap
3rd.
2, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
the
when he
rate
jumped
of
Ricciardo.
progress. Back in, 2017, 2018, he was just overtaking cars for fun, starting last every race. So now he's putting into
Exactly.
practice winning championships. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think Alonso got a pretty bad start, didn't he, as well?
Yeah.
Of course, Gasly has to let him out of the way, because that's how Formula 1 races are rigged, remember, if we learn anything from Zandvoort. And obviously, Lando went backwards. I know I watched it with one of my other friends. He was a massive Max Verstappen fan, bless him. Shout out to Kane, I know he's listening. But I said to him, like, it wouldn't surprise me if Max was P3 at the end of lap 1. And there he was, P3 by
Yeah.
the end of lap 1. It just always, at the moment, seems to fall into place for him, doesn't it? And there was
Yeah.
certainly a moment later on in the day where it felt like that. But
That's
mean-
absolutely not. We're going to have a discussion about that later.
we are. But yeah, I mean, Verstappen's just doing everything he needs to. Lap 2, he was already past Ricciardo. Lap 5, he jumps Russell. No one really, there's no point in having a battle with him, is there?
Especially
whilst
not
obviously all that's-
unless you're a Ferrari, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, whilst all this is going on, we've got Sainz and Lewis slowly picking off cars further back down the order.
I
And
think you're doing
Sergio
Sainz a
Perez's
disservice there.
car... What's that?
Sainz was rocketing through the field. He was
doing
like
very well.
overtaking everywhere, overtaking into any corner what he liked. He was doing bits, and Hamilton was the one kind of taking his time, but eventually ended up pretty similar parts of the track
Still
by the end
right
of the
behind
race.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, Perez, I think, flat spotted his tyres, hadn't he? Which meant he had to come in at the end of lap 8. And then his car started to catch fire. Now, this was brave, I think, by Sergio Perez, because he can quite visibly see smoke pouring out of one of his front brakes. Does that stop him doing 210 miles an hour around the circuit? Of course not.
Yeah. Like, there's a very real possibility of getting a Kimi Raikkonen Nürburgring type failure from 05.
I was thinking more Seb from Monza a couple of years ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but even so, like, who knows what could happen when your brakes are not working to the optimum condition at Monza? Like, there's very high speeds and very short run-off areas when you're going that fast. So, yeah, fair play for carrying on, but I think it affected his pace quite a bit because he seemed to not be pushing as hard as he could have been on his outlaps on the hard tyres at the start. But yeah, very, very weird that it didn't cause a retirement, I thought.
Yeah, no, quite impressive, wasn't it? Because, I mean, the key there is just put more air through it, and the key to doing that is just go quicker.
Yeah.
Lap 12, though, Sebastian Vettel, happy memories early on in his career from Monza. A lot of really bad ones in more recent times, let's be honest, and this weekend it got no better. Lap 12, engine gives up, and that's the end of Seb's Monza dream.
Yeah. And, one more race goes by for Vettel before the end of his career. And he's not gone by very well.
He's just got to be begging on the end now, hasn't he, surely? It must be
surely
so depressing.
He can get... I mean, when he retired, we were like, maybe a podium. I think a point at this point. It's like...
Yeah. It's so depressing. But, yeah, like I said, though, that brought out the safety car, which allowed, obviously, Charles Leclerc...
Well, the VS, virtual safety car.
The virtual safety car, sorry, yeah. Charles Leclerc, of course, pit under that. Max Verstappen didn't. And that's when we knew Ferrari had made a mistake because Red Bull didn't copy them. And Red Bull
to be
always
fair
do
to Ferrari, I didn't think that was that bad at the time.
No, it wasn't helped, of course, because the virtual safety car stopped when he was in the pits.
The VSC ended very quickly, I thought, and like he was halfway down the pit lane. I did have a sudden think of, oh no, this race is going to be boring, when Leclerc looked like for a second he might come up behind the whole mid-pack, behind Ricciardo. But luckily, was for his sake, was able to stay a hit in front, and it kind of like it's a shame. We'll get onto it later, but like it would have made the race interesting if they'd have stuck to that idea, because it obviously got him a slightly cheaper pit stop than Red Bull were going to have to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think you couldn't argue with the Red Bull's race pace anyway, but it just feels at the moment like Ferrari is still trying to outsmart themselves. And, I don't know why, because, again, I'm obviously in the same position with you. I think Leclerc should have just, unless he had issues with those tyres that we don't know about still, he should have just tried to hang out there to the end. If he got jumped by Max, he got jumped by Max. If he pits, he's guaranteed to get jumped by Max.
Yeah.
Ferrari,
it's like
for some reason,
they're almost
just
trying
always
to
want to
have
chase.
Races. Yeah. It's like they're almost trying to get Verstappen more race wins.
Well, I don't even think it's they're trying to get Verstappen race wins, but for some reason, they seem to believe that they do better by being behind than in front.
Which if they've ever watched Formula 1 before, the idea is to be in front of everyone.
Well, apart from Canada 2019.
Yeah, I suppose. It was a weird one, but I don't think that call in itself was bad from Ferrari. They got quite unfortunate with the timing of the ending of the VSC, but yeah, that left Verstappen in the lead. Leclerc was going a bit faster for the next phase of the race. But yeah, it was, especially later on, it was kind of like all over.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing. I mean, we saw Max pit on lap 26, obviously, and he came out, about 6-7 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, and was just, the gap was staying fairly level, and then Max started taking a couple of tenths out of him, sort of lap after lap. So we saw, Charles Leclerc pit again, lap 34. Whilst that was all going on, Hamilton proved the haters wrong and overtook Fernando Alonso. Nice, only being able to lead from the front, mate.
Was that not for P4, P5 or something at that point?
It was about P5, P6, yeah.
That, I would define that as the front, as a Hulkenberg fan. If Hulk was P4, I'd be buzzing.
I'm sure you would. But yeah, like we said though, Leclerc pit again, lap 34.
It was really weird that
I don't get it.
Yeah, Monza has one of the biggest pit lane loss times just because of the speed you're going on the straight compared to in the pit lane. Like, it's one of the easiest one-stops of the year because the race is so short. There's barely any tyre dead because there's about 4 corners, really. It's like, why would you intend to do a 2-stop? And like
Ferrari.
What lap? Lap 34. So there's 19 laps left. You've only done 22 on the tyres. His pace wasn't falling off at all at that point in the race, and they just pit for softs. It's like, why? just see what happens. You might get a safety car later on. You might get another VSC where you could take a cheap stop. Just pitting at that point was just completely like throwing in the towel. It was like, there's no way you're going to make up 20 seconds.
And I don't know whether it comes from the whole Ferrari thing of, it's always spoke about, isn't it? The media in Italy run Ferrari. Whether they thought, if we have a tyre blowout with 2 laps to go trying to gamble it, they'll go, well, you should have pit him so he guaranteed the points. But come on, you're already out of the championship. Just
That's
throw
living
the
in
dice.
fear, yeah. Just try and go for the win, especially at a track like Monza, where everyone there is there to see you win a race. It was such a cautious strategy. If it was roles reversed,
remembers the Ferrari P2s.
Yeah, and it's like if it was the roles reversed, and I don't know, like Verstappen was the one who had long to do on his tyres, and obviously he's trying to protect the championship lead. At that point, you're like, yeah, pit, take the points.
Yeah,
and it's not your home race, so no one cares. It's like, it was just a bizarre decision, I think. Another one.
Ferrari just Ferrari it again, don't they? I mean, the race was a bit odd, wasn't it, throughout? Because there was bits and pieces going on, but not a lot of it was particularly exciting. I guess the only other really big memorable moment before the ending was obviously Hamilton's cheeky little double overtake on
nice,
Pierre Gasly and Ricciardo, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Was it? Yeah. Was it not Norris and Gasly?
I know it was a McLaren and Gasly. I thought it was Ricciardo, but you could be right. I think actually, I'm pretty certain it was Lando Norris. Now you've said it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cheeky little one. The wily old fox has still got some tricks up his sleeve. I mean,
good out-tractioning out of turn 1. Yeah,
he did really well. I read it like a book. And I mean, there's more talks, aren't there now? Which I'm very surprised by. Hamilton, you get in the sense he isn't done with F1 yet again.
Well, I feel like he relishes the challenge. Like, obviously, he'd rather be winning or have a chance of winning races, but I think he was almost getting bored of just having Bottas to fight. Like, obviously he'll be writing history and stuff like that. Yeah, not really fight, but just have Bottas on a leash quite easily. But now he's kind of got a project to get him behind again, like to try and rebuild Mercedes from the terrible 1 year it's been since the championship.
Yeah, crazy, innit? Yeah, I mean, could we see Hamilton go to the end of 2025, 2026 even?
I think by then he won't be the Hamilton we know now or knew last year. Anyway,
he hasn't fallen off at all yet.
I think he's done a bit worse. I mean, 2021 he was made with some mistakes as well, but yeah. I'd like to see him. I would really like to see Mercedes able to fight for wins next year, just because I want to see Verstappen v Hamilton again, because Ferrari are just so incompetent.
Ferrari are useless at that. And I think, the big thing is, isn't it, for Mercedes, if they go back to a normal side pod concept next year, that might be what brings them right back to the front again. But again, that is speculation, I think, for another day. I'm sure we've got plenty of time over the next few weeks to talk about all the goings-on for each of the drivers. And then, really, we kind of got the final bit of controversy. Like we said, F2 ended weirdly, with Drugovich winning the World Championship from the pit lane. Victor Martins won F3, controversially, in the pit lane. And then the Formula 1 race, Ricciardo's engine gives up with 5 laps to go. And I didn't realise this is what you do at a safety car finish, Jamie. But apparently races can finish under safety car. Did you know this was possible?
Oh, we're going to bring Abu Dhabi right back into it, aren't we?
It's too soon still. The scar's cut deep. And to be fair, you've got to admit, it is a point that should be raised in these moments.
Yeah, it's got very obvious parallels, of course. Yeah. I think, though, like, I didn't watch the race live. I watched it on catch-up later on, so I hadn't been on Twitter all day. So I didn't see the live reaction on Twitter, which is obviously a great place to get the general feel of an F1 audience from.
Universally hated.
I really don't get why, really. There was one thing that confused me, but the rest of it was kind of done all right. Obviously, Ricciardo stops his car. I was trying to think earlier on today. I was like, is there anywhere else on the whole calendar that's more difficult to recover a car from than the inside of Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2? Apart from the Monaco tunnel, I couldn't think of anything.
The Singapore tunnel?
Where's the tunnel? No, that would be easier. There's loads of runoff. Like, there, you've got it's a narrow track, so you've got to get a small crane.
Actually in the tunnel.
The Singapore tunnel, as in between, what is it, 21 and 22? That tunnel's tiny, though, isn't it? But anyway,
it's still going to be difficult.
It is. But there's a crane right there, because remember when Kobayashi and Senna ended up there in 2010? They recovered those two cars really quickly.
Anderson Bridge, same circuit. Remember
That would
Ericsson
be
when
hard.
he binned it there?
Ericsson did that, yeah. That took a bit of time. But anyway, it's a very difficult place to recover a car from. People who wanted the race restarting, if you're going to do it by the book, which obviously we have to do now because of Abu Dhabi, because if you just bend the
what
rules...
do you mean we have to now? We should
No,
have
but
then.
if you bend the rules now, it would just be pointless that we went through Abu Dhabi and there was loads of inquiries because you'd not learned anything. Obviously, it should have been done properly then, probably.
Probably.
I understand why they did what they did, but it wasn't entirely 100% right.
You're basically saying it was wrong. Jimmy, you can admit it. Enough time has passed.
There's a grey area between right and wrong. Okay, that's where I'm standing.
Oh dear God!
Yeah. So the retirement was on lap 48 of 53. So you've got
almost like 53
effectively
58.
You've got to tail up all the cars. That takes best part of half a lap usually, maybe a more. You've then got to
because they messed it up.
They did mess it up. We'll get into that later. You've then got to clear the car, which takes a fair amount of time, especially since Ricciardo left it in gear, which didn't help. So getting the crane onto the track, clear the car, that takes probably at least 2 laps. So at that point you're saying it's lap 50, 51-ish. Then you've got to let the lap cars through, which interestingly you don't actually have to do. But if you do that, you've then got to wait another lap to restart the race. So if they were running,
it's been changed in the rulebook now that you have to let all of the, you either let none or all through.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You either let none or all.
Yeah.
So they could have kept it at none, and restarted. But then they wouldn't have really got a climax because there were 2 cars between Verstappen and Leclerc anyway. What was like? So in terms of that, you're very, very pushed for time. It didn't help where the car was. It didn't help that Ricciardo left it in gear. I don't think they could have done much different in this scenario.
Now, here's an idea for you, Jamie. There's this thing in Formula 1 called red flags.
And red flags are a safety measure used when the track needs repairing or there's someone in danger. They're not to be used for entertainment purposes.
There was a tractor on the circuit.
Yeah, that can recover a car safely without the need of a red flag.
It's still not comfortable viewing to see Formula 1 cars driving past a tractor, at least for me personally.
But everything was under control. That's a very slow part of the circuit.
Never is everything fully under control in Formula 1.
But like, if you're on a motorway and there's a lorry stopped in the hard shoulder...
Nicholas Latifi still is in a Formula 1... Yeah, but the thing is, you say a motorway, Formula 1's a sport that's meant to be entertaining. Like, the motorway is not entertaining.
No, but you're behind a safety car. Like, I'm saying is, like, you've got a stopped vehicle on a motorway on a hard shoulder, and you're driving in the slowest lane on the motorway, going about 60 or 70 miles an hour, which is probably what the F1 cars are doing around that corner anyway on the safety car. So that isn't an unsafe scenario. You're not going to suddenly swerve into it because you see a stopped vehicle.
Puncture?
Oh, that's just such, like...
It could happen. It could happen.
It's such, like, 1 in a billion chance
the
of
thing
that.
is, the point you've said about, obviously, they should only do it for certain circumstances, you could strongly argue this was one of those certain circumstances.
I disagree. It's a typical recover a car with a crane. Like,
is someone trying to dig a hole?
Sorry?
Is someone trying to dig a hole?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where you're going with that. I don't know where you're trying to lead me.
Well, I think for me it just again, I think Hamilton summed it up perfectly, didn't he? At the end of that race during his interview, because of course Hamilton was obviously going to be asked about it, and like he quite rightfully said, they always, they allow racers to finish under a safety car, apart from one instance, and you can't help but wonder whether he went to sleep last night, and just kind of went, yeah, there are some frustrating things about this sport. Because the thing is, as well, it does raise a good question about where do we draw the line between F1 being a sport and F1 being entertainment. And Formula 1 has really swung over both sides of this line to more and more extremities over recent times. Both of us can completely understand. Abu Dhabi was set up, that final lap was set up the way it was to be dramatic.
Yeah,
to give the drivers
It
One
was
lap
to completely
go for
avoid the anticlimax that was going to happen if it was to finish on the safety car.
They could have red flagged that race with 1 lap to go, let them both get on a fresh set of softs, and then whoever won was whoever won.
But again, I think that would
there would have probably been a crash, but
yeah, definitely, especially if Verstappen wasn't leading after turn 1. Yeah, I just think they really don't like going near red flags unless they kind of have to.
They loved him a couple of years ago.
They did, but then
remember
those
we got
circumstances,
so many red flags.
2020, there was 1 at Monza, and there were 2?
3 at Mugello.
3 at Mugello? Where was the first one?
I thought there was.
There was 1 for
2...
the huge crash on the pit straight.
There was 2 early on, I thought.
No, it was 3 starts. So 1 proper start, 1 after the big crash and restart, and 1 after Stroll went into the wall. That was because Mugello is not an F1 circuit and shouldn't have really been, because the tyre walls are just all tyres.
It's FIA grade 1.
It is, but it's not up to the standard of most tracks, because the recovery vehicles have to, you can't get them around the tracks.
It's FIA grade 1. That's the standard.
Yeah, but come on. The fact Stroll's on the red flag there was a bit insane. But yeah, I think they don't like touching red flags unless there is actually a safety problem or the tyre will need repairing.
You can say it. Don't worry, I don't mind. They don't like touching red flags whilst Max is winning.
Oh, come on. You're better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were a couple of uncomfortable conversations last night after the Grand Prix.
The only thing that was weird is that the safety car picked up the wrong car. That was something that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, that shouldn't have happened in the first. I mean, it was just a bit of a disaster, wasn't it?
It was.
The thing is, they make an absolute hash of Abu Dhabi last year, and it's a disaster. And they do exactly the opposite this time, and still make it an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Only
the safety car
in
picked up
Formula
Russell,
1.
Who was, the safety car situation. It comes out the pits. It's got the green light on the back.
It's because Verstappen pit. So they thought Russell was then leading because he was nearly a lap behind Max.
Yeah. Which is just a complete lack of communication. But, yeah. The fact... So you basically had Russell... What would it have been? Russell, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton. No, Russell, Sainz, Hamilton, Perez.
Perez, yeah.
And then I think it was Verstappen. Or maybe you had Alonso. No, Alonso was out.
Yeah.
You had something else and then Verstappen. But anyway, they just picked up 5 cars too soon. Because I was watching on Channel 4. They were getting... When they did let the lap cars... not the lap cars, sorry. When they let Russell and those lot through, who were not a lap down, they thought that was... At that point, they got the message saying lap cars may now overtake. And then they started crying because Bottas didn't go through, who was lapped.
Yeah.
But that wasn't
radio,
the case.
I think.
That wasn't the case anyway, because the lap cars were never told to pass. They only told the safety car to pick up the right driver.
Yeah.
Which allowed letting Russell and those lot through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a mess. I do think they could have restarted without doing the laps cars. They did have time for that, but then that almost defeats the point because Verstappen had 2 cars between him and Leclerc anyway.
Yeah, I think
but yeah.
It's that fine line, isn't it, I think now, because I honestly at this point, if say you have a safety car within the last 5 laps, I would be fine with them. Yeah, I get it. It's the problem, isn't it? I feel like I want to say I'd be fine with them just red flagging it and letting everyone bolt on a fresh set of tyres. But it does then. I mean, you're going to get some bizarre incident down the line, aren't you, where someone's absolutely, again, like Hamilton, for example, in Abu Dhabi last year, dominates the Grand Prix, and then bunches everyone back up, and then he gets screwed.
And also, that's just artificial if you're like, if we get a safety car, we're going to have a red flag. Because...
So you're telling me you don't like artificial finishes?
But, teams... Obviously, these things happen in Formula 1. If you need a red flag, have one. But, teams legislate for doing, the best strategy for a 53-lap race. If safety cars come up, then they think on their feet. Yeah, but safety cars are necessary in certain situations. If you're we're always going to have red flags in the last 5 laps, people would just start gambling on doing the best strategy for 48 laps and then hope there's a retirement.
It would make it exciting.
It would, it's just, It's not Formula 1 anymore.
Formula 1 is a complicated matter, I tell you what. But yeah, difficult viewing, I think, at the end of the day.
I don't think controversial is the right... It was just messy. Because they did everything by the book.
I think we'll agree to disagree.
Because the only
on this
controversy
matter
is
at the
people
moment.
bringing up Abu Dhabi. There was nothing particularly controversial about this one.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? This one wasn't controversial in itself, but the fact that obviously the problem is, I think, for a lot of people still is obviously the fact that Abu Dhabi happened and set a new precedent for a lot of people.
But
And there's only so many times you can tell people they did it wrong there, and then not. Obviously, yeah, it's just so difficult.
But they did. That's the thing. Abu Dhabi, arguably, it set a precedent. If it did, it set a precedent. Okay, they then had an inquiry and said this was incorrect. So we're going to go do it properly. This time they've done it properly, and people are like, Abu Dhabi is wrong. It's like, yeah, we know that. We decided that in March.
So
they're doing it right this
the right
time.
driver the championship.
But they can't do that.
They can. They've got 5 years, actually. Did you know this? I found out this fascinating last week. They've got 5 years to change results like that. They could still genuinely, to this day, go back 2 laps and reinstate Hamilton as world champion if they wanted.
It just wouldn't ever
It's
happen,
mad, isn't it? Imagine they
the only
do
thing
that
they
in
would
4
do,
years.
they would completely absolve Abu Dhabi as a Grand Prix, in which case Verstappen would win because he was ahead on countback going into the race.
Yeah. And then, of course, you'd have everything else and this, that, and the other, isn't it? It's just...
And Hamilton shouldn't have gone off at Imola anyway. So.
What do you mean? Well, he still recovered a P2 that race. What are you on about?
Yeah, due to a lucky red flag. How about that?
And?
Shall we move on?
I just want to say, I think...
Let us know who you agree with more. I feel like I'm more reasonable in this scenario.
No, I feel like you're happy that Max won both races here.
I really do.
I
mean, this season to me is done.
I feel like it's a
Verstappen's won a
lot
championship.
easier when your driver won both races.
I just want an interesting season at this point. Like I know Verstappen's won the championship. I really do not care how many more races he wins, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I feel like
I just want interesting races, and I feel like they couldn't have done much more in this situation.
Okay. Yeah, I feel
from
like
pick up the leader.
I feel there's going to be some begging to differ. I feel like you want to believe you're taking the measured response here, and I just don't see it that way.
No, I am.
But we'll move on. We'll move on away from the end of the Grand Prix. So it was Max Verstappen that won the Italian Grand Prix there, of course, ahead of Charles Leclerc. George Russell, again, just kind of picks up a podium out of nowhere, doesn't he? Just kind of appears there on the podium once again. Sainz P4, good recovery by him. Hamilton P5 and Sergio Perez P6, so very, very good recovery drives by all of those drivers. Lando Norris P7, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Gasly
and then
8th.
It was Gasly 8th. Nick de Vries 9th. Points on debut. First time since Snowder, which now would have been a brilliant time to interject with your quiz. Sorry, Zhou Guanyu even.
Thank you.
Did Zhou Guanyu? I'm not convinced he did.
He did. He came 10th. What are you on about?
I'm adamant I don't remember this happening. Oh yeah, because
Alfa
both Red
Romeo
Bulls stacked it, didn't they?
Both Red Bulls stopped, yeah. He overtook Schumacher on the second last lap. And then he would have finished 9th, but that was a yellow flag because Perez spun. He was about to overtake Alonso, and then there's a yellow flag out.
Yeah, okay, we'll allow that for now.
But to be fair, I was very happy with Joe's race, other than he definitely should have beaten De Vries, I think, over the course of the race.
I think that Williams was a strong little package. I think as well, I don't think Albon would have finished any higher than De Vries did.
Potentially 8th. I think Gasly was there for the taking.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But I think it was just kind of a perfect storm, wasn't it, for De Vries? Because I like the guy. But he's not quite this young breed of... He's not with your Landos, your Albons, and your George Russells. He's 27 still at the end of the day.
He's the Dutch Giovinazzi.
Would I like to see him replace Latifi next year? Absolutely. Would I rather see someone else take that place? Depending on the driver, probably.
Logan Sargent. Get him in.
That's
another one. I pinned my colours to the mast in about Silverstone time with Sargent. It's just all gone.
And he's been useless.
Absolutely awful.
It is impressive. Let's discuss then, Jamie. Driver of the day. Are we giving that to Nick de Vries?
No, I'm going to give it to Carlos Sainz. I think it was top.
Okay.
Very, very good overtaking. Early race. Overtook anywhere.
Okay. I will go with a fan favourite. I'm going to say Nick de Vries, a driver of the day. Let's head over then. F1 fantasy time. I am not looking forward to this because I feel
sorted my team
had
out.
a nightmare.
I sorted my team out on Friday, and then I was playing a football match on Saturday morning, so I didn't have time to see that Albon was ill. So I had Albon in my team. That became De Vries. But I was annoyed about that until De Vries started doing well. So that was fun.
Give me the number. I don't want to know how much I lost.
I'm actually just logging in. Oh wait, I've already logged in. I am on 196.
Oh!
What about you? What are you saying?
133.
Ooh, that hurts.
It was not a fun weekend. I swapped out because I was worried. I put Bottas in my team in a blind panic. And then I had Alonso and Alpine as well, who just spent the weekend.
Bottas has gone missing since Canada, by the way.
He basically has,
fraud.
hasn't he? I mean, I put Alpine in there as well, which I thought straight lines, Alpine car, that's going to be some good points, and Alonso as well. I turboed Perez. It was just an absolute disaster from start to finish. I mean, Bottas, Alpine, and Alonso between them netted me -4 points.
That's not good going.
Half my team netted me -4.
Well, 3 of my team, Verstappen, Turbo Leclerc, and Ferrari. That's going to be difficult to work out. 45,
give me the numbers.
70, add 52.
We're looking at 115, we're looking at 167.
Oh, you can tell he's a banker in here.
Hey?
Yeah.
You did maths at uni.
I didn't do maths. I attempted to do maths and failed after 1 year, so switched it up.
I can see why you can't add up 3 two-digit numbers.
I'm a materials engineer, and you know.
I genuinely didn't know that's what you did.
No, yeah. There you go. 3 years down the line, what a friend. Yeah, so pretty good for me. I'm up to... Where am I in your league? In our league, sorry. Oh, I'm only up 8 places, actually. I'm
Our league? Sorry, what's the name of the league again?
Knowing Wheel Podcast League.
It's not quite that, I don't think.
No, it's not. Matt212's league. I'm 242nd.
Oh, I don't even know where I'm at. I don't even want to know where I'm at.
Well, your internet's in the mud, isn't it? So
yeah.
I
at 866th.
That's poor. That's yeah, not great. Still got a mega, to play. So
yep.
Yeah, it's all going well.
Oh, do you want to give us a rundown of this week's top 10 then, Jamie? How many points would it have taken to get inside that top 10?
So yeah, we had P1 of the week was Oliver L. With everyone's played the mega, but it's Mega Verstappen, Turbo Leclerc, Norris, both Hasses and Ferrari. Interesting.
That is a very big gamble, but fair play.
Yeah, it worked out. On 306 points was the most. Dave T in second place, 303. No Michael No was third place. We love that. On 302, where half your name is censored, which is unfortunately I can't read it out, but it's Greek. So there you go.
I want to see what his name is now.
Yeah, it's 3 letters, and it's blank blank blank, and then NISIS. No idea, but yeah, Matthew S in 4th, Ativ in 5th. We had Undertaker in 6th, Christian R in 7th, Jason L 8th. Losing on Porpoise, I love that name. That's unreal. And then AD Mitchie in P9 and Paul K in 10th place. So 281 was the magic number to get in the top 10.
281 this week.
Again, if I'd have megaed Verstappen and got 90 extra points, I would have been in.
You would have been. Yeah, you have had a really, really good run so far the second half of this year. What is the top score anyone's got in the world, Jamie? Currently, can you have a quick look? I'm still intrigued. Bless him. I do feel sorry for Max, but I'm intrigued to see how well he's hanging on.
Mega Hamilton was so poor.
That was so just. I mean, risky is the word we were going to use, but
3,425.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Max. It's not been great for you, mate. So, Max still leads our league, 90 points clear still at the front of the field with 3,266. But Larry T, 3,176. Bryce G, 3,175. And Dipan K on 3,172. 4 points across those 3. And they've all still got their Mega Driver. So we could see Max unfortunately drop back down the order a bit by the end of the year. Nahal V is sat in P5 ahead of Rosario in P6 there from Argentina. Philip with the Volvo 240, hashtag 17 Global 2021, which I want to double check. I feel like is a world touring car.
I have no idea. That's your
I
realm.
want to say, nope, it's a really old Volvo by the looks of it.
Oh, I love it.
Which I also did think a Volvo 240 was that. So, fair play. I'm loving that team name. Timo is still P8 there with 3,141. Then we've got Joshua C and Carlos still just nestled inside that top 10. 3,133 points you'd need currently to be in the top 10. Sorry,
I'm
Carlos
not a
is
million miles
tied
away.
with Tay B. If you finish P10 in my league this year, I'm going to be very heartbroken.
I don't think it will happen. I'm on 2898, so I'll need.
Oh, yeah, you're going to need a miracle.
Wait, 230? Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, that's not going to happen unless everyone inside the top 10 gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Our predictions, though, Jamie, they weren't a complete nightmare for me. We were kind of both a bit destroyed again because of all the penalties that got announced after we made our predictions.
I did alright, though. I don't know if you saw.
We both did alright.
I was one overtake away from getting bang on podium, so that'd been quite nice.
Yeah,
so I think
you did do better than me at the end.
Yeah, I did.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
no.
I had we both have a Verstappen pole. Obviously, penalties put pay to that.
I feel like you said Sainz, Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc this weekend.
No, I didn't. Of course, I said Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. Come on, don't even bother checking.
Did you say that and I put the graphic
I actually
up
don't
wrong?
know. I'm almost certain I did put Leclerc second.
Okay.
Yeah, I had Verstappen, Leclerc ahead of Sainz with my top three, which without penalties would have been bang on all weekend. But there we go. Yeah, and you had, I think, a Red Bull 1-2, Verstappen, Perez, and Leclerc.
Yes.
So
we
you
both
got
went
three.
Verstappen pole.
And I got
so
four.
I only lost 1 point this week, which brings the scores up to 56 even to 42.
Yep.
Which
There's not long
which
left.
is not great.
I
Not
suppose with
great,
8
but
points
still.
a race, that it's going to go till the wire, just in case.
10 points in Brazil.
Yeah, 10 points in Brazil. So it would be unlikely to be decided much before Abu Dhabi.
No, exactly. And honestly, for me, that gives me a false sense of hope.
Yeah.
Speaking of hope going into Abu Dhabi, Lewis Hamilton officially is out of the championship hunt this year.
Wow. There we go.
Crazy scenes. And here I was thinking a summer break he was going to recover this and win the title.
Yeah,
Oh, how
you were
wrong
hyping
I
that up.
was.
He's had not the best run of form since then, has he?
No, but we move. Race rating then, Jamie, to round us out. We've kind of smashed through the second half of the show, haven't we?
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically any European race I've got to watch on delay now, which is a shame because I'm working Sundays.
That's not that bad when we're leaving Europe.
No, I suppose, yeah, it'll be alright after this.
We literally just finished the European leg of the year.
I didn't get a complete picture of the whole race to watch live, but I got the Channel 4 highlights, which are about an hour and a half long. It wasn't great. I'll put that out there. I'll give it a 5.
Oh, I think that's actually, I forgot about the finish. I'm going with a 5 as well.
I wasn't even marking down the finish. It was just.
I am.
Yeah.
I am marking down the finish. I think that's one of the worst races we've given this year.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It wasn't. To be fair, it was pretty bad if you compare it to a lot of the races.
Well, it's weird, isn't it? We've kind of now got used to a lot of cars being able to battle, which is a bizarre complaint to have in Formula
Yeah,
1. But we've kind of just become sort of immune now to actual
We've been
racing.
treated too well. Yeah.
We have this year. So, yeah, an interesting race from the Italian Grand Prix. But anything else to talk about then, Jamie, before we wrap up this monster of a show?
Yeah, we spent too long talking about F3 at the start. I'll put it that way. Yeah, I don't think we've got anything else. Sorry, I just checked Twitter and football's going mental.
Yeah, I was going to say, we always have to check F1 news. Always got to check the F1 news before we leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, now obviously we've got a few break weeks from Formula 1, of course. We will be back next Tuesday with sort of a normal show. We might do a bit of a recap. We might do some reactions. We might do something else. You don't really know. Maybe we'll respond to some of your hot takes down in the comments below. But thank you all so much for listening. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure you leave a like and get yourself subscribed. Make sure you click the links down below to follow us on Spotify as well. And we'll be back very, very soon with more Knowing Wheel.